So a couple of years ago, um, I interviewed a lady who was on the door in 1977 as a secretary when the club in Halifax or somewhere, Huddersfield, basically maybe Wakefield, I can't remember, put Shirley Crabtree, Big Daddy, on the door. So that story came from her mouth, um, like nearly 50 years ago. So I interviewed a gentleman as well who um, was there for the meeting when he went to meet Jimmy Savile with Sykes in the 80s. So that those stories came from actual witnesses. And one story I totally forgot, but I think I kind of half mentioned it in one of my first books, was I didn't go into it because he was still alive, but obviously Geoff Capes is no longer with us now. But for a long time in the 90s, um, there was extreme bad feeling between Geoff Capes, Britain's strongman, and a bit like Eddie Elwood, I suppose. A law-abiding citizen, businessman, got a head switched on, and obviously a professional athlete. I didn't know Geoff Capes, but I presume he was a household name, so he didn't need to break the law. And he ran a very successful security company, which had the security on the Madison nightclub. Now there was two Madisons. There was one in Middlesbrough, and there was obviously one in Newcastle. So Geoff Capes had the men on the door, and I spoke to John Spenceley. In fact, I spoke to Tony about it, and I also spoke to a very well-known name in Newcastle who everyone knows, but I'm not going to mention because sorry, I've just finished night shift. I'm knackered. Anyway, they told me the story of basically, there was animosity on this door. The Leeds lads were on it. Or I think a lot of them were Leeds lads, and running Geoff Capes' door. And basically, the Newcastle people wanted the Geoff Capes team out of it. So this Newcastle figure contacted the Spenceleys and said, "Are you still in touch with Paul Sykes?" Um, Cut a long story short, can we pay him £500? It was, which was a hell of a lot of money back in. I'm trying to think when it was. Nineties. I don't know, somewhere around the 90s. And yeah, basically, Sykes didn't have, for as intelligent as he was, he didn't have, he wasn't acute. He wasn't like astute with business. He wasn't, it was just all about the drink and causing mayhem and havoc and violence and destruction. Um, where I presume, well, he must have been Geoff Capes running his own security company. So, and I do know. So John Spencer told me, he said I was with Paul a couple of times when he rang Geoff Capes up, and obviously Geoff Capes, very capable figure, one would imagine, Britain's strongest man. But he just basically, Sykes was what he was, and he was a thug, yeah, a complete menace. And in the end, basically, Geoff Capes's men were moved off the door, and the Newcastle people got the club back. As I said, the Spenceleys have told me the story, and one of the Newcastle people was there when Sykes was, I dare say, probably a chronic alcoholic at that point. But his name was, and particularly to a lot of these guys of Geoff Capes were all Leedsmen anyway, so his reputation preceded him. And he said, I remember him turning up, dark hair, suit, tash. We paid him the money, and that was that, and there was no more trouble. But that was a true story. Um, I've It went on for quite a number. I want to certainly weeks, but certainly maybe I want to say months. But yeah, Paul Sykes, Geoff Capes, almost to the point where I think it wasn't for the Sykes. I mean, Sykes wanted to fight anyone. He was just that kind of character until he got old and his body wouldn't have it. But in the end, I think Geoff Capes was just like, you know, done with you. But yeah, true story. Paul Sykes got the door back, and Geoff Capes' men moved on.